So now I have the honor to introduce our featured speaker. Dr. Barbara Jackson has numerous accolades, and her passion for this industry and the design build is palpable when you talk to her. I remember I first heard about her in a DBI conference. I remember somebody was saying, oh, Dr. Jackson's presentation is going to start, and everybody was going to that room. And I was wondering, wow, I need to check it out. And I'm glad I did, because since I met her and I heard her speak, it was amazing. I attended her boot camp, and I will tell you a little more about it. But I don't want to bore you with her whole accolade list because it's amazing and impressive, but I want to highlight her first. She was the first woman to be named the director of the Franklin Bird School of Real Estate and Construction Management in the Daniels College School of Business at the U. It has 78 history, and she's the first woman to lead that department. She was the first woman to be identified as a design builder, creating a design build company in 1984 in Virginia. She was the owner and president, and this was 9 years before DBIA was established. She was the first woman to teach a construction management at Cal Poly in San Luis Obispo, California. She developed the design build curriculum that any university in the United States in 2000 in Cal Poly. She was the second woman to get a general contractor license, and she was referred as that woman for other subcontractors and trade partners. So she also has 2 books, Construction Management Jumpstart and Design Build Essentials. And she's the founder of Women Building Change. And this organization hosts a bootcamp construction leadership program. It's a 4-day experience that you have to be vulnerable. You have to be true yourself in order to get the best out of it. Because if you don't, she's gonna make sure you are, because she keeps digging and digging and digging and digging. And some of you that have been in that boot camp know that I'm talking about. And this is the sisterhood, the woman who built. In my personal experience, I attended that boot camp, and I was in a crossroad in my career, and I didn't know what to do. And I remember I asked her, Dr. Jackson, what should I do? I explained the whole situation. Should I take this opportunity? And I said, she's like, you have to make the jump, Ali. And I say, what if I fall and hit the ground? And I was already crying. And she said, what if you find your wings? I mean, what? So Dr. Jackson, I found my wings, and they're this big, and I'm not letting anybody, including myself, put them away anymore. I'm letting them be big and soar and help you in that purpose. So thank you. So it's my honor to introduce her. Take an opportunity to listen to her, she encourages you to support your colleagues, and her wisdom inspires you to take the jump, because you will find your wings. Barbara, take it from here.
All right, Ali, thank you so much. That was beautiful and wonderful. Thank you. I'm going to share my screen now and get us started. Let's see. Let me get my slideshow going here, play from the start. All right, everyone, I'm so happy to be here. And Ali, again, thank you for that wonderful introduction. So I want to thank Mortensen as well. I want to thank Christina. I want to thank everyone, quite frankly, for putting this together. It's wonderful. The panel I thought was extraordinary, and you know, the few women or the couple women on the panel that I don't already know, I would love to get to know you better. So let's get started here. As Ali told you, I did start a company. This was back in 1984. And I ran that company till 1996, and it was a design build company. And our motto was, when you serve people, you don't have to sell them anything. And I want you to kind of notice that tagline, because that in itself is going to give you an indicator of what it is that women bring to this industry. And I'm going to kind of say it like this. The work we do in this industry, for most of us, isn't about us. We're in it for some reason that's way beyond about us. And that's part of what the value I think that women bring to this industry. So Lots of things. As Ali said, I was only the second Class A licensed contractor at the time in the Commonwealth of Virginia. Every place I went, every building supply, every vendor, when I talked to subcontractors, they would all say the same thing. Oh, you're that woman. And I wore it like a badge of honor, because yes, I was that woman. And I stayed with this effort till 1996, when I decided to go back to school. And I decided to go back to school for one reason, is that I wanted to influence and transform an industry that I love. My whole family's been in construction or engineering. I love it. And I wanted to create an environment in which women could excel in this business. When you look at this image, that's me there standing next to the sign. And there is one other woman in the picture that I want to acknowledge, by the way. Her name was Betsy, and she was my office manager. And as many of you know, the women in our offices, our staff, our support, they too are the champions in this business that need to be acknowledged and recognized for the support that they give to an entire organization. So over the years, yes, I went back to school, all 3 degrees from CSU, by the way, Colorado State. But over those years, as I've been at Cal Poly and now at DU, I've still stayed close to the industry. I try to get out in the field every now and then, a little older, a little chubbier there, but I'm out there trying to stay engaged and stay connected with the industry as much as I can. Now, I'm not the only woman out there in the universe. There's many of us who started many, many years ago, several decades, as a matter of fact. And I just want to, you may know Linda Alvarado, and you may not know, but Linda Alvarado is president and CEO of Alvarado Construction. And there's just a little clip that I want to share with you.
When I first started, I dreamed of building small projects. Then I started having these visions that I could build a high rise, not a mid rise, but a high rise. So it meant taking a bigger risk, bidding on bigger projects, adding more people. And so we did bid on a project, and it was a renovation of a hotel. And as it turned out, this project was so high profile, people were looking at, just wait till she fails. She'll be out of business soon. And in reality, while it was so high profile, it worked for us, not against us. And almost became the benchmark that people could see that a woman had built this project. Just like I never thought I would ever be a contractor, I would have never envisioned me being an owner of a Major League Baseball team. And that enabled me over time to break the stereotype, not just about me, but about all women and what they were trying to do. I was invited to my son's kindergarten class. It was like career day. So at the end of the program, the kindergarten teacher asked my son, Rob, when you grow up, would you like to be a contractor like your mother? He thought about it. And he said, no. And she said, well, don't you want to build high rises and schools and sports facilities? And he said, no, that's women's work.
It sure is. It's women's work. So let's just take a look at where we are today in terms of the percent of women in the industry of construction. You'll see on this slide here that we're way down here at the bottom at 12%. Not much, quite frankly. And the other part of this is that in management and administration roles, we have 9%, or sometimes reported a little under 9%. And as far as the trades are concerned, it's 3% or less are reported. Now, here's the big issue. These numbers haven't changed much in decades, not a few years, but actually in decades. So this is a really big challenge for the industry. We all know it, and lots of people are working on it. But here's the reality. By the numbers, only about 40% of those who lost their jobs in the 2008 recession found their way back to construction. That means that 60% of those people that left the construction industry in 2008 never came back. Never. Current estimates indicate there are about 300,000 unfilled jobs in the construction industry, and the industry is expected to need an additional 747,000 workers by 2026, which is just 5 years away. But here's the other good news, other piece of good news. Women are now the majority of the US workforce. Women held 50.04% of the American jobs as of December 2020. So guess what? This is kind of what we're all up to. It's what this week is about. It's what most companies are interested in today. I hear from many, many construction companies. They want to increase the numbers of women in this field. They need to. There's no way they're going to find the employees that they need and the workforce that they need if they just keep leaving this 50% of the workforce out of the picture. It's time to be intentional. Workforce growth and development will not happen by accident. And here's the thing. We've got to get beyond just adding numbers. Really, we have to begin to really stress advancing women in the industry. But what are the barriers? And I'm going to share some things that are kind of common. We hear about them all the time. And I just want you to have this question in your mind as you look at these next few slides. Are these barriers, are they real or are they perceived? And it may not be either or. It may be they're real and they're perceived. Here's some common themes that we often hear. One of the barriers is the glass ceiling. I'm going to suggest there's additional considerations to the glass ceiling, one of them being the sticky floor, and the other one being an even stickier ladder as you climb. So again, let me just have you for yourself think about how much of this is self-inflicted. And the reason I say that is you can't do anything about other people's actions. You can't do anything about their behavior necessarily. You can't do anything to get them to change per se. But one thing you can do is you can change your own thinking. You can begin to believe your own and believe and create your own path and identify your own opportunities and, quite frankly, create your own future. So what are some of the limiting beliefs or assumptions that may inhibit women from taking action to advance themselves? One is women don't promote themselves. We've already heard that this morning, that they have a tendency to downplay their capabilities. They don't promote themselves. Women often don't ask for what they want. And women themselves assume, now hear this, women themselves assume that their gender is a problem in construction. So it's not just men who have perhaps an unintentional bias, gender bias, about women in construction, maybe intentional or unintentional, but we ourselves have thought sometime along the way, perhaps there's something not right with me pursuing this career goal. And even when we decide to come off that sticky floor and pursue opportunities in construction, Even when we do that, as we climb that ladder, and the closer we get to the top, and the closer we get to the top, if that's what we want, we don't necessarily lose those limiting beliefs. They might have been diminished a little bit, but they might still be there. So we have to look at, what is my own limiting beliefs about what I want and what I want to do? And what can I do about those? And those women, many of us, all of us who are in this business and stay in it, and we're in it, and we're in it, regardless of the challenges, we're not giving up on it. We have had to face those limiting beliefs and set them aside, push them aside as if they don't exist. And they exist, they pop up, but having the persistence to set a target for yourself, and even in the face of the challenges and the disappointments, and getting, excuse my language, just pissed off to no end for what's happening and how you get overlooked for promotion after promotion after promotion. We cannot buy into whatever the reason is for that it actually has much to do with us. It has to do with opportunities, perceptions, perhaps, again, unintended bias, but it's happening. And we cannot let that be the reason that we choose not to fulfill the purpose that we intended for ourselves working in the built environment. And where do some of these barriers come from? And this is what really, for myself, I really had to figure this out. And it didn't take me long, by the way, but I had to figure it out. And if you knew my background, you'd understand how I was able to figure it out pretty quickly. But here's the thing. Some of the biggest barriers of all is we say to ourselves, I don't know how to do that. Or we say to ourselves, I don't know anything about it. Or we say to ourselves, I don't know how to get there. And that becomes the stop. Well, here's the thing I'm going to share with you. Knowing how to do something, knowing how to get there, never made a difference. Ever, never. Saying yes, setting a target, deciding that's where I'm going to be in 5 years, and just staying at that course will open up your eyes to those things that will support you and allow you to get there. But you've got to have it in your focus and your vision to begin with. And you watch, when you do that, what you're going to see is, you're going to see things that you didn't see before. You're going to see opportunities. You're going to see openings. You're going to stand in a future that you create for yourself. And your eyes are going to open to the opportunities that are before you. If you want, and this was a piece of advice that was given to me by a very, very successful businesswoman when I was in my 20s. And she said, if you want to be a president of a company someday, then you need to behave and act like a president today, no matter what your job is. It's great advice. So let's take a real quick look. What does the research show? Number one, it shows a transform industry, by the way, requires a transform leadership. Over 2 decades of research confirms that the skill sets of women are completely aligned with the transformational shift that is happening in the industry. More collaborative, integrated design and construction, all of these skill sets, the ability to communicate, the ability to facilitate, the ability to inspire, the ability to set a vision, those are all skill sets that women actually have demonstrated having in greater amounts than many men. So we are ideal for the transformed industry that we're in the midst of right now, that's happening as we speak. How about intelligence? You can look at any data you want to look at regarding the IQ of men and women. Quite frankly, in many instances, you're going to see that there's not much difference at all. So we've got all the smarts. How about this? Emotional quotient, emotional intelligence. Again, this is an area where women outperform men at a significant rate, quite frankly. And emotional intelligence is that skill set that is absolutely aligned with where the industry is going. Types of intelligence, various types: linguistic, visual, physical, social, musical, logical. You look at this chart, there's not much difference. There's not much difference. 67 versus 65, 69 versus 71, 70 versus 71. There isn't much difference. So what's this mean? It means as a woman, you can defy all stereotypes. You can go against the grain. You can still dominate, be powerful in a male-dominated industry. In other words, you've got all the right stuff. So what's the problem? Part of the problem is we focus primarily on just the numbers, increasing the numbers of women. And even that is a challenge for us, but that's primarily where companies are focused. They're focused on the numbers. And unfortunately, that's not good enough. It's not going to get the job done. As a matter of fact, conventional approaches to advancing women in construction have pretty much failed across the board. Starting about 6 years ago, companies started reaching out to me and telling me about their efforts to bring more women into the company and to advance women in their companies. And they were failing. And I was invited. It's the first time that I started to put together any of this material around why women, why now. It was the impetus that had me do that. And the more and more I looked, what I discovered was that many of the approaches companies are taking simply don't work. Let me share a few of these and why they don't work. So let me share the first one we have already talked about: metrics and targeted recruitment efforts, meaning numbers. And the reason it fails is focusing on numeric goals and not culture is the problem. That's what reason it fails. Women's networks, great idea, right? But it excludes men. So that's a problem. If anything, what that can sometimes do is continue to separate us. Continue to separate us. I'm not suggesting that there's not some benefit to it. As a matter of fact, I'm building a women's network. But we cannot have the conversations we need to have with the men that we work with. We're always going to have this blended workforce, and the more blended it can become, the better it becomes. Training and coaching for women, specialized. This is focusing on fixing the way women think and act sometimes, meaning the training and coaching that happens sometimes is simply kind of focused on fixing the women, making them the same as everybody else. Work-life balance programs, great idea. Many companies now have some version of this, but we have to remember that many women cannot take advantage of those policies. They simply can't. Women's mentors. We've talked about mentors this morning, and I love the idea of champions. Mentors and mentees often, though, aren't trained in what I'm going to share with you next about gender intelligence. It's great to have champions and mentors, and for heaven's sakes, please champion other women. But we've got to remember, we've got to still figure out some of these nuances about what's in the way of us increasing women advancing in the industry. And diversity workshops, we probably have all seen some experience where the workshops themselves may have created the reverse effect of what we wanted them to. What's the good news? As an industry, we have a tremendous opportunity before us. as an industry, we right now have a tremendous opportunity before us because the industry has multiple challenges. Diversity isn't just one of them. It has multiple challenges. For one, how the industry is still perceived. I shared a stage with a group of folks out in California, business people. And what I heard that day was how people outside the construction industry perceive the construction industry. This is what I got: low tech, archaic, outdated business model, wasteful, and low productivity. That's how we're perceived as an industry. That's a challenge. How about this? We're seen as order takers and not value generators. How about that one? We're still a commodity. One potato's as good as another potato, so just buy the cheapest one. That's the way contractors are seen still. The state of expectations I see over and over and over again. What can you deliver as a contractor? Cost, schedule, quality, safety. We say it all the time, the three-legged stool, right? Sitting on a foundation of safety. Fantastic. But to me, it's like, is that all you got? If that's all you've got, that gets you an entry into the industry. It certainly doesn't set you apart from anybody. It's a vicious circle. And here's the vicious circle. And again, I do a lot around this issue because we have such capability to generate such tremendous value in the marketplace and to the built environment, but we're still stuck. We're stuck. It's like, you know, what do we deliver? We deliver cost, budget, and schedule. Great. Why not more? Because that's the only thing the client asks for. The client says to me, I wish they could provide more than just cost, schedule, budget. Of course, they cost, schedule, quality. Of course, they're delivering that, but gee, I wish they'd offer up something more. Well, why don't they offer up something more? Because you don't ask for anything more. Because you don't ask for anything more, they don't offer up anything more. We are so stuck, so stuck. How about this one? Innovation gap. Look where construction is. It's adoption of technology, digital technologies. Construction's at the bottom, just ahead of agriculture and hunting. This was 2017. We have some challenges. How's the real shift going to happen? How's the real shift of advancing women, bringing more women in, yes, but advancing them, how is that going to happen? It's not going to happen. We're not going to be able to address those challenges unless we start looking at leadership and culture in the industry as a whole. And here's the thing, culture eats strategy for breakfast, if you haven't heard that phrase before, by Peter Drucker. And this is what we're looking at right now. We're looking at strategy, all those things that in many cases, the strategy is to increase the numbers. Great, that's not going to change anything. Why? Because the culture hasn't changed. We really have to focus not only on the numbers, but on culture and leadership, or maybe I should say leadership and culture. Because for culture to change, leadership needs to change. I happen to believe there's a gap between the leaders we have and the leaders we need. And what I mean by that, not like there's something wrong, it's just where is our focus? What are we trying to move? What are we trying to influence? Where are we trying to have the greatest impact? So how about we start? One place to start is by reframing the conversation. That we start reframing the conversation about diversity and gender. And we go beyond the cognitive intelligence and even emotional intelligence, and we start to become gender intelligent. What if the solution isn't eliminating the differences between men and women, but instead learning how to recognize, value, and leverage those differences. There is real significance in what we can do to leverage when we leverage those differences. Here is the fundamental concept behind gender intelligence. Equality does not mean sameness. An understanding and the appreciation for the natural differences between men and women that goes beyond biological and cultural to include literally variations in brain structure and chemistry that influences our thoughts and our actions. This is a good thing. A company doesn't become gender intelligent by simply enforcing diversity compliance policies, offering flexible work programs, or creating women-only networks or interest groups. Gender intelligence comes from understanding and appreciating the unique talents and skills that men and women bring to the table and how their natural complement can improve the productivity, innovation, and economic growth of an organization. And there is research that proves that that is a significant advantage. It's a paradigm shift in thinking that would finally crack the code of gender equality. Again, not my words. I didn't make this up. This comes from research. When women think, they collect more information from the environment. They arrange their thoughts into more complex patterns. They see more relationships between different elements. They weigh more variations before they make a decision. Women instinctively collaborate. Men tend to focus on a particular issue one at a time, much more linear. They omit extraneous data and information. It's kind of get things out of the way. They have a tendency to ignore other ideas or concerns. They move in a more structured step-like fashion, and men are naturally inclined to get the problem solved by narrowing and implementing solutions as quickly as possible. Again, that has worked for our industry for a long time. It no longer is the path that allows us to optimize solutions and leverage opportunities. They are both perfectly good ways of thinking. They're just different. What the heck would happen if we started to leverage the differences? A culture of difference thinking begins to develop. Every function, strategy, and process begins to change to reflect more expansive thinking, more opportunities, see more ideas, innovation. This affects almost every aspect of an organization's being. How we market, how we sell, how we relate to one another, how human resources are managed, how talent is accessed, hired, and leveraged, and how we lead. Again, what's getting in the way? I'm going to share some blind spots and unintentional gender bias. Blind spot number one, the belief that equality means sameness. More than any other blind spot, this is the one that contributes most to our talking past each other and misleading one another's intentions. It leads to a lot of uneducated assumptions that may be completely off the mark, and again, limits our capability to optimize. Blind spot number two, the male-designed organization. I think you probably know this already, but almost all businesses have been structured as machine-like characteristics of speed, efficiency, and clear hierarchy. Military model of command and control, no longer a match for what the market demands, but we can't seem to break loose from this dominant paradigm. Male-dominated businesses, construction, don't question this blind spot, often because they don't recognize it. But if we start to see this and start to question it, again, not because it's bad and wrong, but because maybe there's something even better. Maybe there's a way to think about business and how we do this work that's a better way. And again, that's a challenge for us. It's a challenge for any human being that can't see the need for change. But the reality of it is the market is demanding a different way to do this business. It's why I got into design build when I was just a youngster coming out of college like 100 years ago as an undergraduate. I knew there was a better way to do this business. I created Design Build Services Incorporated 8 or 9 years before there's a Design Build Institute of America, because it just made common sense. Fixing women to think and act like men, blind spot number 3. And here's the thing. For decades, an effort to get women to approach and engage in their careers by acting like men, for decades, fixing women perpetuates the belief that there's something wrong with them in the first place. Like they need something that they don't already have. Now, I'm not talking about technical training. That's, of course, we need to know that. But I'm talking about the way we think, the way we approach problem solving, the way we like to engage with others to solve a problem. That is a different way. It doesn't need to be fixed. I'm going to tell you, I haven't talked about this a lot yet, but I'm going to tell you that one of the saddest things that I have been seeing over the 5 years that I've been doing the Women in Construction Leadership boot camps is how often even the most successful women in construction have a sadness, if you will, and they'll point to at what point in their career they had to stop being themselves. They had to stop being themselves, and they started to become something they're not in order to achieve that success in this business. And I hear it so many times, and it still happens. And this is because we're trying to say how you are and the way you think and the way you behave, that doesn't work for construction. What I'm here to tell you is if you want to set yourselves apart, distinguish yourselves as a company, leverage that difference, because it's what's going to give you the most opportunity to innovate, do it better, add value, eliminate waste, all of that, mitigate risk, for heaven's sakes. This blind spot continues to be a huge opportunity lost for companies if they keep seeing it as we've got to fix women and make them more like the way we think and we do things. You're missing a tremendous opportunity. And then finally, we cannot ignore some real behaviors that we experience as women in the industry. Women often feel dismissed for their ideas and excluded from events and opportunities for advancement all the time. It's the number one thing that women come into boot camp with, is being passed over multiple times for promotions. They feel they have to work harder than men do and produce more to prove themselves. Here's the reality of it, and we talk about this in boot camp, for example. Men are promoted based on potential. Women are promoted based upon performance. Women must overperform to get the same consideration that men get. And the reason is, it is because how men and women relate differently. Men relate side by side. Bob's got real potential. How do I know? Because I play basketball with him all the time. We have beers together. Women relate face to face, which makes men really uncomfortable. Their competence and their commitment is often doubted. And I heard it on the panel. At least 2 people on the panel said that they have to constantly remind people of their capabilities. Now, here's the thing I want to share with you. I don't think men are generally doing this intentionally. I think it's that unintentional gender bias, unintentional. And think about it. Men have wives, mothers, wives, sisters, daughters, right? In their lives. Those are the women they generally engage with. In many, many cases, most cases, those mothers, wives, daughters, sisters have not been in the construction business. They don't want to hear about the construction business. They don't know about the construction business, and they have no interest in learning about it. That's who we're relating to, a man who has no experience at all engaging with women who love this business. They're in it for the same reason the men are, but they don't have any recognition of that's who you could be standing in front of them. You can be a rock star standing in front of them. And it's like they can't relate that. Well, you stand in front of them and you keep standing in front of them, because at some point they're going to say about you what they said about me after a period of time. I would walk into a room full of men and 4 guys would come up and tell the rest of them, this woman knows more about construction than anybody else I've ever met. I didn't know more about construction than anyone they'd ever met, but somehow they finally recognized that. And they recognized that because I stayed at it, I learned the business, I figured all the terminology, I did all of that. I didn't necessarily change the way I'm being all the time. Initially, I did have to, I'll use the word manage what they saw. Why and how women bring greater economic value? Balanced leadership improves the bottom line of every company. And in many cases, it's drastic. Gender blended teams are more likely to achieve substantially greater outcomes. And the research shows this over and over, like by 1/3. Outcomes in problem solving, decision making, and financial performance. 5 areas. Gender diversity unleashes the greatest value. Balanced leadership, gender blended teams, market responsiveness, risk management, and talent utilization. We got to make these shifts. Shift from sameness mindset to difference mindset, from a gender blind meritocracy to a gender intelligent meritocracy, and from incongruence between intention and behavior to congruence. I know I'm about out of time here, but I'm going to this up. Key takeaway.
Barbara, I just wanted to jump in real quick and say we have plenty of time on the call, so if you want to keep going, please feel free to stay. And if you do need to go, we will send out all the links that have been shared and a copy of the full recording. Okay, Barb, continue.
Thank you, Christina. Key takeaways. Transformation begins with leadership. Strategy won't work if culture stays the same. The numbers won't solve the problem. Meritocracies alone are not enough. There's a science to our differences, and it's not just about women. Gender intelligence accelerates all diversity. So my work and my intention, since I graduated as an undergrad from Colorado State University, has been to transform leadership and culture in the AEC industry. I've been working on it a long time. First, my focus on design build in 2015, created the Leadership Bootcamp for Women in Construction, and in 2019 created the organization called Women Building Change. Here's the bottom line for me, my bottom line. I believe that women participating and leading in the industry is key to its transformation. And by building a network of support for women in construction, we are securing the future of the industry itself. This is the new face of the industry, many of the new faces of the industry, and these women are changing the industry. I want to plug our boot camp. Allie did a great job plugging it, but I want to plug it a little more. Companies, please consider sending women to the boot camp, and please consider sponsoring a boot camp. How to join this awesome team of women building change? Come to the boot camp. Over 130 women from across the country have attended, women from 17 different states, 52 different companies. They're in all positions. If you see yourself in a job or a position that's related to construction, then the boot camp's for you. PEs, PMs, pre-con, business development, project execs, vice presidents, principals, HR, IT, marketing, architects, the trades, engineers joining us as well. We're building a network of women supporting women from all over the country, from multiple different companies at every level of the organization and representing every aspect of the construction business. Let's make this thing happen. Again, sorry, I went over by 5 minutes. That's not too bad for me, actually.
Thank you, Dr. Jackson. I call you Barbara. You're right. We are creating also a women network of support and a sisterhood. And somebody was asking about my shirt, and that's what you get also. You get that alumni shirt, you woman who built. So contact Dr. Jackson or myself. I see some of my sisters in the chat that they're part of the conversation here. So we can all tell you it changed our life. I found my wings. So thank you.